Source: Sweet Reincarnation. The story starts with the grand finale of the Great Patissier World Tournament, a show with a mass audience cheering, with every top chef showing their jaw-dropping creation. Our MC is also one of those chiefs, also known as the Patissier Chosen One. He has crafted a large bird that's made of candy sculpture. Everyone has high hopes against the Chosen One that he's going to be the world's greatest patissier soon. Furthermore, the Chosen One has made a land of sweets, which consists of various animals made out of sweets. Even the Chosen One is satisfied and happy. Moreover, he feels confident that his time to shine has finally arrived, and today his childhood dream would finally come true with his victory. Anyways, the time to showcase their creation has finally arrived. Therefore, along with his team, the Chosen One carries his masterpieces to the judging area. However, he underestimated the weight of the candy bird, so it starts to slowly lean towards the Chosen One. And as his hand slips, it feels straight into the Chosen One. Hence, we now see him lying on the ground while blood is flowing from his head. This world can never see a man happy. All of his dreams start to shatter as he starts to feel numb. Moreover, he can't believe that he actually is about to die, because he always wanted to create the world's greatest sweets before he would die. However, his life didn't go according to his plan. Therefore, tears start to drop from his eyes with a desire to at least create a land of sweets, which would bring smiles to everyone around the world. So now, his senses start to get blurry as his life starts to fade away. Moreover, he thinks that gods are way too cruel to let such a man depart his soul from earth. But that's where he hears the voice of a woman. She tells him to allow her to grant him another chance, though the Chosen One is confused with what's going on around. Anyways, everything starts to turn bright when the lady tells him that his new name shall be Pastry Mille Mortelme. And alas, he gets isekai'd to another world as a newborn baby. We then see the land of the Mortelme where Pastry tells the tale of his father Casserole Mille Mortelme. That when he became the owner of this land, it was nothing but ruins. He could barely even grow any wheat in such barren land. However, his father never gave up and worked hard along with the believers that followed him here. Moreover, the locals even joined him. Hence, after 20 years of unity and hardship in cultivating the soil, their hard work finally paid off. They even managed to expand their land that populates into 3 villages. Moreover, each village has around 40 people who are capable of growing both wheat and barley. Then it cuts to Pastry practicing swordsmanship with his father. Though his father seems rather disappointed in his son for having a sloppy grip, not sure what he expects from a 9-year-old. That's where Pastry reveals that it has been 9 years since he got reincarnated as the son of the fief's suzerain Lord Casserole. Furthermore, his family consists of a father who was a military hero and a kind mother. But that's not it. He has 5 older sisters too. So at this point, Pastry is quite satisfied with his reincarnated life. However, there's one thing that bothers him. It is the fact that his land doesn't seem to grow sugar. Therefore, it's hard to get sweet things. And as a sweet lover, he craves eating sweet desserts. As he is practicing with his father, the head retainer of Fuil, named Feville, arrives. He asks Casserole to take a break since breakfast is about to get ready. Hence, the practice session ends right there. So Feville tells Casserole that he has good news and bad news, and asks him what he would like to listen to first. So he starts with the good news, which is that the bean fields will look significant. Hence, it will yield remarkably this year. Moreover, he gives credit to Pastry for this. Since he guided the farmers to sprinkle lime on the soil, it would improve crop yields. So Casserole feels proud of his son. Anyways, Feville then reveals the bad news. Turns out the county of Reetz have failed to encounter the bandits. Looks like those bandits somehow managed to escape. Furthermore, around 50 of them are heading towards the mill village. Can't believe Feville had such big news, but he still chose to joke around a bit. It scares Pastry because if these bandits arrived, they would ravage their fields. Hence, their lifetime effort would go to waste. Bro should teach them how to craft a gun. Feville reveals that it would take around 2 months for the bandits to arrive here. Moreover, their only chance to defend themselves is to gather up the villagers and drive the bandits away with pikes and slings. Though it worries Pastry because even if they gather up the villagers, they would roughly find around 30 young men that could fight, which will barely slow the bandits down. So Casserole suggests that they should hide the villagers from the canal, while he would ask Count Reitz to send reinforcement. However, that wouldn't be possible because it would affect his reputation. Therefore, he would never send reinforcement. It pisses off Pastry because he would never be able to create sweets if those bandits ruined his crops. This kid is still thinking about sweets, although that impresses Fiville to see Pastry taking this situation seriously like a leader. At this point, they have no options but to face those bandits. Moreover, Fiville has an instinct that Pastry will be their trump card in this fight. Therefore, he asks Casserole to hold a sanctification ceremony. Okay, so now they're bringing magic into this. So later, while having breakfast, Casserole tells his wife Agnes and his daughter Josephine about the sanctification ceremony. However, Agnes seems quite concerned about this ceremony, since Pastry is only 9 years old. Since the ritual is usually for those who are in between the age of 13 and 25. But that's where Casserole reveals that Pastry is a gifted child. At such an age, he is at the top of his age group. At this point, Agnes had no option but to agree to this ceremony. Therefore, she and Josephine get energized to prepare Pastry for the ceremony. For some unknown reason, they even wear a girly outfit and apply makeup on him. That's what happens when you are the only brother to 5 big sisters. Anyways, the day of the ceremony arrives, so he farewells his mother and sister. Moreover, his friends, Mark, Lumi, and the rest also arrive to meet him. They wished him good luck in visiting the capital. Whereas, Casserole asks Fiville to take care of the village. And that's where we see Casserole casting teleportation magic. Hence, Pastry and Casserole depart away. So now, Pastry finally arrives at the capital city, Bolvadia. It quite excites Pastry after he sees the variety of edible items in the capital. Moreover, the thought of finally being able to bake sweet items cheers him up. So his father promises to buy him anything if he passes the ceremony. Therefore, Pastry asks his father to buy him sour apples known as bonkas. Moreover, he asks him to bring them back to the village so he could try to grow them. At this point, Casserole feels proud of his son for thinking about the development of their village. Bro just wants to make candies. Moments later, they finally arrive at their destination. When the father of the church greets Casserole, he seems to have great respect for Casserole. Even the priest gets shocked to see a 9-year-old kid coming to get true sanctification. On the other hand, Josephine asks Fiville about the true sanction, since he never had to go through that process because she was born without magic. Therefore, Fiville explains to Josephine that true sanction allows the person to use magic. This process measures a person's magic. Anyways, back to Pastry, who seems to be tied up and blindfolded, while the priest pours bitter water into Pastry's mouth. Hopefully the priest has good intentions. Though Pastry is then left alone in the dark as the priest leaves. It has been 36 hours since Pastry has been locked up in that room. However, the magic machine is still measuring the amount of magic Pastry has. It even surprises the priest, since he never saw anyone who possesses this much power. However, Casserole seems worried about Pastry being locked in a dark and silent room for this long. On the other hand, Pastry seems rather exciting as he couldn't stop thinking about the number of sweet dishes he'll make from bonkas. He feels like the reason he was reincarnated in this world is to create a land of sweets. The name Pastry suits him quite well. After some moments, Casserole removes his blindfold and reveals that the machine finally weighed his magic after 2 days. So now the priest gives his blessings to Pastry. And finally, Pastry unlocks the ability to use magic. Now that the ceremony is finished, Casserole takes Pastry to the market to fulfill his promise. After deciding for hours, Pastry finally picks the bonkas he finds fit. We then see a glimpse of the priest. He seems ungrateful for the silver coins that Casserole gave him. Moreover, he calls him an ignorant person, and further reveals that he did expect that from a backwater noble who won his title on the battlefield. Although that reward would not be enough to shut the priest's mouth from telling others. That priest did look quite sus from the beginning. Anyways, back to Pastry, who seems quite happy after taking the first bite of bonkas. It has been years since he ate an apple. Moreover, he asks his father to not tell Agnes or Josephine that they ate the best 2 bonkas among them. And once again, he starts to think about making apple pies, tarts, and candy apples. Furthermore, he reveals that one day he will fulfill his dream of creating a land of sweets. Next day starts with a village that is burning. Turns out the bandits have invaded that village. Moreover, they have killed everyone, although they don't seem to be satisfied with the amount of loot that village has. It's not even enough food for themselves. So now their leader, Helm, seems rather excited to find out what the land of Mortelm's got to plunder, since Mortelm's land is quite known in the capital for harvesting crops. On the other hand, we see Casserole and his men building stakes near the canal. It surprises Casserole that it has been only 3 weeks and the bandits somehow managed to reach Liptaver, since the bandits are moving at a fast pace. Therefore, they have less than a 2-month deadline before the land of Mortelm gets invaded. Hence, Casserole asks Pastry to go and contact the leaders of each village. Moreover, ask them to gather here as soon as possible. Furthermore, he asks him to bring Cointreau and Glackage with him. At this point, Pastry is quite concerned about the attack, since now they have even less than 2 months. Moreover, for the 10th time, he reveals his dream, which is to create a land of sweets. Therefore, he can't let any bandit come on his way and destroy his dream. Anyways, Casserole immediately rushed to understand the situation and started to take action. He decided to temporarily seal up the 2 smaller villages. Moreover, he ordered them to fill their eels up and strip their fields and homesteads. So now people from those 2 smaller villages moved on to the main one, since they all have to be together for the war that's about to begin. Therefore, they have decided to gather everyone in the main village because that's where they will be luring the bandits. Their main goal is to avoid any surprise attack from the enemies. They even stored the food inside a shelter and lowered their consumption of food to 1 meal a day. However, Casserole seems worried since this stored food wouldn't last more than a week. Plus, they are still short of men. Aside from Casserole, Fiville, Cointreau, and Glackage, the rest of the village are simply peasants. They have never fought in a battle before, nor practiced. At this point, if the fight occurs at a prolonged campaign, they'll be doomed. Why aren't they using their magic? Moreover, Pastry hopes that his father and Fiville are aware of their men's condition, and they should prepare an authentic plan if they wish to defend the land. Even Mark and Lumi decide to join Pastry and help him in this situation. They claim themselves as the lieutenant of Pastry, since their fathers are the retainers of the land suzerain. Therefore, it makes them the retainers of the next generation of suzerain, who is none other than Pastry himself. The kids know their place. However, it exhausts Pastry to receive noble treatment from his 2 childhood friends. It makes him feel like his skin is crawling, so he asks them to stop being so formal. Normally, around this time, Pastry used to play with Mark, Lumi, and the rest of the kids. And somehow, Pastry comes up with an idea. He asks Mark and Lumi to do him a favor by gathering rocks. He explains briefly that the size of the rock should be normal enough to be thrown. Looks like the bandits have already crossed the fief's boundaries, so now they are running out of time. Therefore, Pastry asks his friend to inform him if they hear any distant sounds or see anything unusual in the forest. Moreover, he tells them to run within the walls if they sense any threats instead of exploring further. And lastly, he instructs them to stop treating him like a noble. Hours later, we see Lumi and Mark still gathering rocks. At this point, Mark's back starts to hurt since he has done around 10 laps of the village. Moreover, Lumi asks Mark about what kind of magic did Pastry end up with. However, Pastry seems to be keeping it a secret for now as he tells Mark that he is still practicing his magic. Therefore, Pastry wants to reveal it as a surprise once he masters it. So Lumi starts to tease Mark by saying that Pastry has gotten even further than him. It quite triggers him, therefore he starts to compare himself to Pastry and claims to be better than him in a brawl. Weren't they literally claiming Pastry as their lord a moment ago? However, Mark gets frozen in between the debate. Turns out he has spotted the bandits arriving towards them. Therefore, the kids immediately rush back within the walls and alarm everyone upon their arrival. Cointreau immediately closes the gate of the land and draws back the bridge. He further tells the children to stay along with Lord Pastry. That's where we see Pastry commanding his mother to take the little children inside at once. Hopefully she doesn't grab Pastry inside. In this moment of heat, the villagers begin to panic. They start to lose hope since they are lower in numbers. That's where Casserole makes his entrance. Moreover, he begins his speech in which he tells them that if the bandits entered the land, they would kill. everyone and would steal their food. Moreover, they would even burn their houses down, which sounds unacceptable to everyone. Casserole refuses to let that happen, and he expects everyone to have the same dedication as him. Everyone should have the motivation to fight in order to protect their families. And with unity, they can drive those bandits back. So he doesn't believe that there would be a single man who is a coward in Casserole's territory. He believes in his people and asks them to share their faith too with him. At this point, the villagers start to get motivated and energized. It impresses Pastry to see his hero father filling the villagers with courage. Furthermore, he reveals that the bandits will attack them during the nighttime, so everyone should be ready to take their positions. Casserole commands Cointreau to go to the Western Canal, while Glackage would take care of things in the east to center region. Furthermore, Feville tells Casserole that the bandits don't know about the route of this village. Therefore, during nighttime we would be at an advantage. Therefore, he predicts that the bandits might wait for the sun to rise and then strike. However, Casserole believes that the bandits must be running low on food and provisions. Therefore, they will rush in the dark. Moreover, last year's frost has left their neighboring lands with poor crop yields. Therefore, he believes that the bandits were unable to loot enough resources from those villages. Hence, they will indeed attack them as soon as they can, even if they are at a disadvantage. However, Casserole is playing a dangerous game here. If the bandits decided to attack during the day, then the men might be exhausted at that time, since they spent the whole night guarding the area. Hence, Casserole asks Pastry about what he thinks of this situation. So, Pastry believes that there are too many things that they don't know. Moreover, he thinks that we have to learn in detail about our enemy's supplies and forces. He compares this situation to preparing sweets. Before cooking, you have to know about the ingredients and instruments you have. Anyways, Casserole agrees to his son. Therefore, he decides for aggressive reconnaissance with Feville. It's a military term for spying on the enemy's tactics and resources. So he puts Pastry in charge while he is away. Casserole plans to hit the enemy and return through the northern entrance. Anyways, Pastry asks Mart to tell Cointreau that he will use flaming arrows to signal the enemy's arrival, whereas Lumi is ordered to tell Glackage to start preparing the flaming arrows. Furthermore, he tells Glackage to shoot the flaming arrow if he senses any unusual voice or movement, so that flaming arrow would help his father to return home. Wouldn't that lure the enemies too? Pastry also reveals that Casserole's teleportation magic has a weight limit. Therefore, he can't simply teleport himself, Feville, and the horse at once. At this point, Pastry never thought that he would have to worry about protecting his fief. However, to fulfill his dream, he has to protect the lands that would later play a major role in creating the land of sweets. Moreover, he has to protect the villagers to bring smiles to their faces. Even Casserole wants this war to end by tonight. He would do anything for the village, even if it means using himself as a decoy. Then we see Feville using his magic eye to spy on the enemy. He reveals that they might be in a problem, because the enemies are a gang of ex-cavalry. Moreover, they have 5 horses along with professional horse riders. And after counting, Feville reveals that there are around 70 of them. They even captured some hostages. Therefore, Casserole decides to ride further close to them. That is where Helm announces his group to prepare for battle since the sun has set. That's where Casserole and Feville invade the bandits and start to sabotage them. Moreover, they even bait the bandits into following them toward the village. And that's where Glackage launches the flaming arrow, which alerts everyone. Hence, the kids start to throw flaming rocks toward the bandits as they pass by the walls. It gives quite impressive damage to the enemies. Turns out, Pastry has involved kids participating in this fight. However, he strictly instructed them to go inside once the bandits enters the village. Surprisingly, Helm dodges the rock and immediately starts to climb the village wall. Hence, he finally manages to enter the village along with his mates who were following him. Helm immediately runs towards the kids to strike them, but Pastry stops him, although Helm uses Pastry as his hostage. Hence, the villagers turn their guard down, but that's where we see Pastry finally using his magic. He replicates the damage of one bandit on the rest. Therefore, they start to feel the pain of their injured mate. So Helm starts to tremble in pain, and that's where Lumi knocks him out by throwing a rock at him. After using brilliant tactics, the village managed to defend itself. Moreover, they even captured many bandits. although Pastry's arm gets wounded in this battle. So Agnes gets worried as the soldier tells her about Pastry. On the other hand, Pastry seems to be telling the villagers to return the goods that the villages hid in the storeroom. Bro seems hella fresh. It then cuts to Beetwin asking Morteln if he is planning to hand these bandits to Countess Reitz. So Morteln reveals that this will benefit the Countess. It'll be a point of honor for her. Therefore, he decides to hand these bandits to her, and in return, they are expecting a healthy reward. Since Casserole is expecting to at least recover the cost of the war expenses and compensation for temporarily sealing the other two villages. Moreover, later Pastry and Morteln seem to be giving medals and rewards to the people who bravely fought in the war. Even the kids, Marcarullo and Luminito, receive a sword and flower for being Pastry's right hand. At this point, Pastry is quite relieved for winning a fight without casualties, and now everyone can gladly go back to their normal life. Moreover, Pastry joins his friends and goes to Marcarullo's house where Mark flexes his reward in front of his mother, whereas Lumi's household literally celebrates her achievements. After celebrating with Lumi's family and hearing everyone praising the young lord, what makes him cheerful is the fact that he can now get back to making sweets. Meanwhile, Lumi and Mark sneak out and decide to check on the captured bandits. They believe that they are being kept at the warehouse. However, the guards don't let them go inside since they are kids. But that's when it gets personal for Mark as he distracts the guards away and sneaks inside the warehouse with Lumi. Inside the warehouse, Mark gets confronted by Helm, who is, of course, tied up. Well, Helm tells Mark that the sword he is carrying actually belongs to him. Furthermore, he tells Mark that if he can use that sword well, then he would be able to access magic through the sword. It quite amuses him because he could be in the same league as Pastry. So Helm uses that opportunity and tells him to unsheathe the sword and raise it. Mark does as Helm says, even though Lumi keeps asking him to stop. As Mark gets closer to Helm, he immediately kicks him and takes the sword back. Moreover, Helm stabs Lumi and takes Mark as hostage. At this point, everyone starts to panic. Even Pastry can't understand the situation. Anyways, Helm escapes while kidnapping Mark and runs away with a horse. This guy didn't even think about saving his friends, whereas Pastry asks the villagers to immediately treat Lumi and stop her bleeding. Furthermore, Pastry starts to follow Helm to the east. Since the traps are still set from the war, Pastry believes that he has the upper hand. And as the news spreads to Casserole, he starts to get pissed off, since the villagers let a kid chase a dangerous bandit. So he decides to go and lend a hand to his kid since the bandit might unite with his comrades that are roaming around. Therefore, this situation might get dangerous for Pastry. Although, Beetwin tells Casserole that he should stay and prepare for the worst with Glackage since they might get attacked. Moreover, the villagers might panic if they hear that the leader of the bandit has escaped. So this is exactly the time when the village needs its leader with them to maintain order and stay calm. Anyways, Helm manages to fall into a trap as he falls from his horse, and that's where we see our hero making his entrance. It pisses Helm off about the fact that he is getting played by these children. Moreover, a sword fight starts in between Helm and Pastry. Although Helm immediately understands that Pastry is trying to copy wounds with his magic, so he decides to kill him with a single shot. Although Pastry seems to be losing since Helm starts pushing him away. Moreover, he literally breaks Pastry's sword and is about to strike him on his head, but that's where it cuts to Beetwin seeming worried as he can't find the young lord. Although Cointreau notices the horse's footsteps, as they follow those steps, Beetwin finds Pastry's broken sword and immediately starts to imagine the worst, and as he returns with a sad face to say the traumatizing news to Casserole, he finds Pastry sitting in his mother's lap as if nothing happened. It freaks him out because he thought the young lord might have gotten kidnapped or worse. So Casserole reveals that it's been a while since he returned. Moreover, Mark has been sent home. Although it pisses off Beetwin and he asks for an explanation for not informing him when he returned. Hence, Pastry reveals that he used his father's magic that he copied. Therefore, he teleported back to the kingdom with Mark. Moreover, Pastry reveals that his magic allows him to copy others' magic that he has directly seen or touched. Casserole feels relieved that his son managed to return home without any injuries. However, he warns Pastry to reveal the fact that he can copy others' magic to anyone. He even scolds Pastry and tells him to avoid using the copy magic technique in front of anyone. Furthermore, he explains that magic is a dangerous thing that can even harm the user. Even though Pastry managed to copy Casserole's magic, he might have ended up getting teleported under a sea or something. Later that night, Casserole tells Beatwin that he fears if the outside world would find out about Pastry's magic, because later, Pastry could be used as a weapon for destruction. So having a bandit leader get escaped might be an issue. The next day, Pastry tells Sad Mark that Lumi is out of danger. Moreover, he is going to visit her. Whereas, Mark starts to feel guilty since it is his fault that Lumi got injured. She literally kept warning him to ignore the bandit, but he never listened to her. So Pastry takes him to Lumi and tells him to apologize to her instead of self-victimizing. Pastry literally makes a bonka pie while Mark gathers the guts and apologizes to Lumi. Although Lumi doesn't seem to blame him and tells him to stop acting weird. Anyways, Pastry then walks in and he presents the infamous bonka pie. He reveals that he made this pie as a get-well-soon gift for Lumi and to cheer Mark up. As they take a bite of the pie, both of the kids immediately fall in love with the dish. Furthermore, Pastry then tells them to taste the honey bonkas that he made. Well, they don't seem to be a fan of that dish, since it tastes quite sour. Not gonna lie, now I'm gonna try eating green apples with honey. Later, Glackage enters the room and starts to tease Mark for making his daughter Mark's wife in the future. Anyways, the day ends with Countess Reitz getting surprised that the land of Mortelm managed to capture the bandits that escaped from the east. However, she says that things will get a little troublesome from here on. We see Casserole telling Beatwin that he doesn't have enough money to rebuild the village, whereas Beatwin seems quite annoyed because they were supposed to solve these issues. So Pastry reveals that due to those bandits, the burden from the two abandoned villages weighs heavily. On the other hand, Casserole can't stop thinking about Helm, since his bounty must have been around 200 gold coins, and in this situation, no one is willing to lend them money, because the surrounding territories won't have any money to spare due to the cold snap. So Casserole suggests Beatwin borrow some money from the royal court's treasury. But that doesn't seem like a good idea. They would literally charge 1 gold piece interest each. So Pastry suggests that they ask for help from his mother and father's family. That's where Casserole reveals that he and Agnes both have cut off their ties with their families. Furthermore, he reveals when Agnes and Casserole got together, this land was even more barren than it is now. Everyone was against their wedding. It then cuts to the kids' gang, where Pastry tells them the situation of the villages. Looks like Lumi has healed enough to walk again, although the wound still stings, so Mark tells her to be careful and not push herself that much. Therefore, Pastry starts to tease them by saying they are a beautiful couple. To be honest, Lumi is down to marry Mark, though that boy seems to get irritated when someone ships them. Anyways, Lumi then suggests Pastry make bonka pies and sell them in other cities. Although that seems like a good plan, but for that Pastry would have to prepare a lot of bonka to earn profit. And right now, the land of Mortelm doesn't have such resources. So Mark suggests Pastry to teach them magic, so they would later do amazing things with that and earn profit. Well, Pastry likes the idea, hence he asks them to draw anything on the ground. And after they are done with the drawing, Pastry uses magic and sticks those drawings on the drawer's hands for 3 days. I thought he would turn these pictures into reality. Instead, Bro gave them temporary tattoos with his magic. Although the kids seem impressed by this magic. So, Looney asks Pastry if he can copy something into a picture. Hence, an idea comes into Pastry's head and he gets excited and calls Lumi a genius and runs away. On the other hand, we see Anne sitting with Casserole and Beatwin. She seems worried about the financial condition. However, she also thinks that it is too difficult to ask her family for money. That's when Pastry enters the room and interrupts them. He reveals that he found a great way to get money, so starts the conversation by saying that recently, Casserole kept teleporting Josephine everywhere to show her face around, since he wants his daughter to get married. But what about the parents that are unable to use magic? They can't simply take their daughters here and there to find the right guy for them, since it's dangerous to travel around for nobles. Hence, he draws his mother's portrait on cardboard and shows it to Mortelm. Pastry then explains this way the parents wouldn't even bother to take their daughters to places. So Pastry introduces this magic and calls it a matchmaking picture. It quite amazes everyone to see that Pastry drew the same way Agnes was standing in a second. Hence, Pastry tells them that they can sell it to people who are looking for marriage partners. Even Casserole finds it a good idea because he can literally make 10 gold coins out of one frame. And since it's magic, there won't be any material cost. Furthermore, Casserole finds this as a win-win situation, because people would now think that Pastry has magic that transfers someone's picture. So the next day, Casserole takes Pastry to Count Letec's territory in the southern part of the Holy Kingdom of Brolic. This territory is bordered by the sea in its southern and eastern areas and has more than 50 villages and 4 major villages. Casserole is serious about this business, so Casserole arrives at the capital of Letec territory, Letekivel. Anyways, as Casserole and Pastry meet the Count, she introduces herself as the leader of the Letec territory. Pastry then remembers that Casserole told him about Brioche's Salgrade Mill Letec. She's the oldest daughter of the previous Count who died in a war. And that Count has a young son who was the only heir to the throne. So until that kid reaches adulthood, Brioche has the authority to act as a regent. However, that kid passed away from a disease before he could sit on the throne. Anyways, Pastry finds her quite unusual as he greets her, since she has been observing him warily. Although, Pastry gets impressed when he sees baked sweets and cookies as they are having tea. But he gets disappointed the moment he tastes the cookies. Moreover, Lady Brioche seems impressed by Casserole's leadership and the way he harvests those crops. She even tells him to give advice to Letec's agricultural management. Although, Casserole gives the credit to his son for lending a hand to him in governing the territory. Anyways, Pastry immediately opens the topic and tells them that they were attacked by some bandits yesterday. Although his father managed to curb the bandit attacks on the land he worked his whole life building it. Moreover, the bandits were around 100, so even the kids had to fight. It quite pisses her off because a kid managed to talk about this sensitive topic that she was avoiding the whole time. Furthermore, he wants to inquire about the bandits they caught, since they were already in Rustavel before, but she starts to act like she knows nothing regarding this topic. So Pastry tells her that they have managed to catch several of those bandits and can surrender them to her. But since Brioche has no idea about this, so they will hand these bandits to the royal family for investigation. He immediately exposes her and reveals the bandits have said that they moved after slipping away from Letec's suppression. Although she keeps neglecting the fact that those bandits never ran from their territory. She even says that it might be their remnants who attacked the land of Morteln. So Casserole takes out a sword that belonged to a bandit and shows them. Turns out that the sword has Letec's royal seal on it and it belongs to them. At this point, they get exposed because the bandit must have stolen the sword in Letec's territory before running away. So, Pastry says it to her face that her house's attempt failed. Therefore, the land of Mortelm was attacked. I thought they were here to sell paintings. Hence, he starts to ask for compensation and ends up getting 150 gold coins for the damages. And before leaving, Pastry suggests Brioche to reduce the sweetness of cookies when it gets served with tea. Moreover, he gives her a painting of herself on a napkin. At this point, Brioche finds that kid really odd. Next, Casserole and Pastry meet the army commander, Duke Cadlasek, at a party. Casserole congratulates Duke on his grandson's coming of age. Moreover, Casserole feels honored to be invited to this feast. So Duke then introduces his shy grandson Squall. Squall graduated as the topper of the class in the military boarding school. It quite impresses Casserole, although he notices Squall getting nervous. So Duke reveals that Squall has so much admiration for warriors. Therefore, he seems to be a fan of Casserole, since Casserole's deeds are quite famous among the youngsters. Furthermore, Pastry steps forward and introduces himself. He congratulates Squall on his coming of age and feels honored for getting invited. Duke gets so impressed by Pastry that he finds him more dependable than his own grandson. Moreover, he tells that Pastry has also passed his coming of age and ended up earning himself magic. It impresses Duke because both the father and son can use magic. He believes that the Mortelm family has God's blessings aplenty. As everyone's attention moves towards Pastry, Duke asks him to show his magic to everyone in this opportunity. So Pastry asks the waiter to hold his towel straight. Hence, he draws a picture of Huberek, Petra Mill with his magic. Everyone seems amazed by the skills of the little kid. So Pastry requests Duke to hand this towel to Lord Squill as a gift from Pastry and Margrave of Hubarek. Furthermore, Pastry reveals that the girl in the picture is actually the third daughter of Lord Hubarek, Lady Petra. Wait, is he trying to ship them? At this point, Squall seems quite attracted to that photo. So Pastry reveals that before coming to this party, he and Casserole went to meet Lord Hubarek at his domain. Hence, Casserole finally speaks and says that since Margrave's territory is in continuous conflict with the neighboring country, therefore it is hard for Lady Petra to leave her territory. Hence, Casserole was asked by the Margrave to introduce her. I'm pretty sure those people must be talking about teleporting Lady Petra to the party. Anyways, Squall seems to fall in love with her at first sight. So Pastry tells him that next month, she will be celebrating her coming of age. Therefore, Pastry likes to invite Lord Squall to attend that party as her friend. Though Duke doesn't seem too sure about that, Squall immediately says yes to the invitation. So Duke starts to realize that he should not underestimate Pastry as a little kid. He literally convinced his grandson blatantly to a marriage talk. Duke then tells Squall to calm down, since how does he plan to go to their territory in such conflicts? Once again, Pastry steps in and says that Lord Casserole will happily teleport Squall to her. That's when Pastry walks toward Duke and tells him that it appears Lord Hubarek has something planned on his mind. Since Lord Hubarek is tired of conflicting with the neighboring territories, so Pastry suggests to Duke that with the help of his military power, Hubarek can possibly quell the aggression and diminish the conflict. Therefore, he wants his daughter to marry Lord Squill. At this point, even Duke gets convinced as he announces that he also joins the celebration. Moreover, he tells Casserole that he'll assist his military in Hubarek's territory. Moments later, while everyone is celebrating the party, Lord Squill approaches Pastry and tells him that from now on, he can call him just Squill from now on, since he is bad at being formal. Furthermore, he starts to ask Pastry about Lady Petra. He compares Petra to sweets. Furthermore, Pastry starts to tell Squill how much sweets he likes, but he interrupts him halfway and tells Pastry that he has a favor to ask. He tells Pastry to draw a more sensual photo of her. And here we thought that he was a fine gentleman. Later, the land of the Mortelme seems to be rebuilding. Moreover, the food and firewood provision has been distributed among the people, and all the expenses are handled by the Mortelme family. Beatwin reveals that it's the first time he saw a lord giving money to his people. So Casserole says in a hero line that a leader who allows his people to suffer has no right to be called one. That's where Pastry enters the room to deliver letters. He reveals that they have received 2 letters. One is from Duke and the second one is from Lord Hubarek. Well, looks like the lords are quite happy with them for introducing each other. Therefore, they rewarded Casserole 20,000 silver coins. Moreover, the engagement between Lord Squill and Lady Hubarek has been decided, which will be revealed at Petra's coming-of-age ceremony. As a separate advance payment, they even send them 30 pieces of gold coins, so Beatwin starts to wonder what Casserole will do with such money. Hence, Lord Casserole reveals that he will use this money to guard Lady Petra. Looks like Lord Hubarek asked Casserole to protect her around the time of her coming-of-age ceremony, since there might be many parties who would be against her marriage, especially the neighboring countries, even though the engagement will be a secret. But Casserole and Pastry highly doubt that the church will spread the information, since they are neutral and can visit every country. Therefore, their mouth might get loose once they are offered money. At this point, even if they escort Lady Petra to the capital, the guards that are left would be a problem. This job isn't easy, that's why they are given a lot of money for it. So Beatwin suggests that they reject this offer if it's too much, but Casserole has no other choice but to accept it, because he wants to earn the trust of the 2 strongest territories, since it would only result in a developing time for the Mortelme territory. Even Pastry thinks that it is a good decision to create a happy relationship with those kingdoms. Moreover, he comes up with an idea of where to safely guard Lady Petra. It's none other than the room for the sanctification ceremony. Because that room has no windows or anything, only a door, so no one could sneak inside that room. Hence, the plan is to guard Lady Petra inside the sanctification room until her engagement gets announced. Anyways, Casserole and Pastry arrive at the Hubarek house later, where they meet Donachil Mil Hubarek. Furthermore, they start to travel on a carriage in which Petra and Licorice are sitting. On their way, Donatello warns Casserole that some people are on the move to hurt Lady Petra. Therefore, he totally counts on Casserole for his daughter's protection. And as the group arrives at the sanctification ceremony, a group of people starts to attack them, although Casserole and Donatello and Pastry manage to handle them as they start to retreat. The twin sisters seem scared by this event. Next, they take the girls to the basement to hide them, although Licorice seems quite scared, so Pastry holds her hand and tells her that it's going to be alright. It starts with Pastry holding Licorice's hand as he takes her to the basement, whereas Licorice seems to start developing feelings for him as she finds him a unique one. Even though she is the older one here, Pastry looks more mature than her. The best thing she loves about Pastry is the fact that he does not compare her with Lady Petra. Moreover, she used to feel like she was indecisive, because even today, she thought the reason her sister is being chosen as the bride is because she is more pretty than her. So she starts to feel guilty because she was overthinking in her head and was acting unpleasant. As they reach the basement, Pastry reveals to the girls that they will be teleported to the capital city for sanctification. This church was only a bait to the enemies. It then cuts to a guy who has gathered many people. He wants those people to do something for him, so he could rebuild the Omania house. He finds this time the perfect opportunity to deal a blow and kill Kadlasek. Well, those bandits seem ready to do anything as long as they are getting paid in gold. So that person tells those bandits that they don't have to kill anyone. Instead, he wants them to capture a girl. And that girl is none other than Lady Petra. The guy is willing to pay 10 gold coins to the person who would take her here. Hence, the leader of those bandits, Strudel, accepts this job and leaves. On his way, his people tell Strudel that this job seems kind of fishy. Anyways, Pastry notices that the security is quite good in the capital. Those soldiers are Margrave Huberic's underlings, whereas Lady Petra seems exhausted because she feels like this engagement didn't come to her and she is sort of getting forced to marry Squell. But that is where Pastry interrupts her and assures her that she will easily settle with it once she meets the groom, since Lord Squell is quite a likable person. So Pastry compares matchmaking to sweets, because one has to be patient. If he rushes, then the dish might fail. Though Pastry immediately snaps out of it as he realizes that he is in the middle of an important mission. Meanwhile, Donatello takes Petra to the priest. That's where Beatwin and Glackage enter the room and meet Casserole. Beatwin reveals that the house of Kadlasek is quite crowded with guests. Looks like the words have spread out. Even the faraway territory's notabilities are coming out of nowhere. Furthermore, Casserole reveals that if Margrave and the Duke joined, they will be the strongest house to exist. Therefore, it's no surprise that everyone wants to attend this event to gain their favor. Beatwin then tells Casserole that Cointreau is on standby at the Duke's mansion, so he will immediately report if any unusual action gets spotted. Anyways, Casserole tells Pastry that he has an important task for him. He reveals that it will be a while until Lady Petra's sanctification ceremony gets over. Therefore, he wants Pastry to take Lady Licorice to the reception room and let her rest there. Is he trying to ship his kit with Licorice? Though Licorice indeed seems exhausted. Hence, he once again holds her hand and takes her to the reception room while Beatwin starts to tease him. Later, a carriage arrives at the church and a guard steps outside. He says that he is here to escort Lady Petra as per General Kadlasek's order. Hence, Lady Petra and her father sit on that carriage as they depart. So now, Casserole must escort Lady Licorice next. Casserole believes that everything is going pretty well for now, although the crowd keeps increasing, which makes him quite worried. So he tells Beatwin to not let his guard down. At this point, Beatwin is imagining that Pastry must be making his moods on Lady Licorice. Well, that can't go well, since Kala doesn't leave Licorice alone for even a moment. She reveals that it is her job to protect Lady Licorice. At this point, Pastry feels quite awkward because Kala seems strict when it comes to Licorice. She doesn't even sit and starts to stare at Pastry with a scary face. Anyways, everyone starts to hear weird noises coming from underground, and that's where a large pit opens right under Pastry and Licorice. Hence, they both end up falling into that pit. Casserole and his team immediately rush into the room as they see a perfect circle hole that has no end. So he immediately realizes that only magic can make something like that in an instant. So Casserole orders Beatwin to go to Kadlachek's mansion and inform Margrave of the situation. And that is where Casserole straight up jumps in that pit. Later, Pastry wakes up and sees himself getting tied. Moreover, Lady Licorice is lying next to him. So Strudel tells Pastry that if he behaves well, he will let him go. So Pastry wonders if he is the same guy who created that hole, although he seems quite relieved because Pastry knows that his father must be on the move. However, Pastry seems confused about why he is getting held hostage. His family is not even wealthy enough for ransom, but that's when he realizes that these people are after Lady Licorice. Strudel even warns Pastry to not do anything stupid because he would not hesitate in killing him. Even though Casserole steps out of the pit, he couldn't sense any human presence. Anyways, Licorice finally wakes up, so Pastry tells her that they have been kidnapped. Moreover, they are in the Kidnappers' headquarters right now. Though he tells her to calm down since he is here to protect her. Yep, they should get married ASAP. However, Pastry decides not to be reckless, because there might be other magic users too. So to gather information, Pastry starts to talk to those bandits. He starts to act like he is the eldest son of a noble, whose father would be willing to pay them even 200 gold coins. So that bandit falls into Pastry's trap. Hence, Pastry comes to the conclusion that the mastermind is someone noble. Moreover, they are in a noble's mansion right now. Although seeing at the spider webs, the mansion looks abandoned for at least 10 years. So Sherlock Pastry concludes that this house must be stripped from nobility 10 years ago. Moreover, he believes that this is the House of Armire. So he writes the location on his belt and teleports it to his father's whereabouts. Hence, Casserole immediately gathers some men and goes to the Armire's estate. Although he teleports Beatwin to the Margraves to gather more troops. Later, Strudel enters the room aggressively as he seems pissed off by Licorice. And as he is about to touch her, Pastry teleports and appears in front of him, so Strudel punches him away with anger. He reveals that he has captured the wrong sister, and now that man isn't willing to pay them money. So now Strudel plans to kill both of the kids since he doesn't want to leave any witness. And as he is about to swing his sword at Licorice, Pastry immediately untees himself and stabs his hand while knocking his mate down. We see Strudel thinking that he underestimated that kid. He literally knocked his mate out in an instant and used the sword to cut free. On the other hand, Casserole arrives outside the mansion with his army. Hence, they start to march in. So, Pastry tells Lady Licorice to be relaxed, since the reinforcement has arrived. At this point, Strudel is thinking about retreating, but that's where Casserole and Glackage surround him. Hence, the father and son start to corner Strudel while Glackage unties Lady Licorice. So he is left with no choice and creates another pit with his magic as he runs away in it. Pastry is about to chase him, but Casserole immediately stops him. Furthermore, he tells his son that he keeps worrying about him, though he is glad to see both of the kids fine. Hence, the reinforcement catches many of those kidnappers. And among them, there is a guy who calls himself Duke Luhingo Armire. Looks like he was the mastermind behind all this. Moreover, Casserole tells that 20 years ago during the war, House Armire were purged and stripped of their status. They were under suspicion for leaking information to the enemy. So with that information, Casserole tells Pastry that an entire family's fate can be overturned because of its leader's one move. Therefore, a leader should always play safe and make decisions that would benefit his people. That's where a soldier approaches Casserole and tells him that the Margrave are waiting for him at the estate to hear the report. So a carriage is waiting for him, although poor Beatwin gets to do that reporting thing while the father and son go to chase Strudel. Beatwin has to be the most underrated loyal guy, as Casserole and Pastry are investigating the building. Pastry reveals that he couldn't detect much magic when Strudel used his spell. Therefore, he wouldn't have gone much away since he was already injured and out of magic. So they conclude that Strudel must be hiding around the building. Therefore, they immediately start to search for the room where Pastry was held captive. And that's where Strudel jumps out of the hole since his plan got exposed. Moreover, he holds a sword as he stands up and says that he has no other option but to kill both of them and run away. Surprisingly, Pastry asks his father to get back because he wants to deal with Strudel himself. No father would ever get back in this situation. Well, no father but Casserole. Hence, a duel begins between Strudel and Pastry. So Strudel finds this situation to his advantage since he believes that Pastry is a kid after all. Therefore, he plans to make the right opening and would use Pastry as a hostage to run away. But as he swings his sword toward Pastry, Strudel's sword literally breaks as Pastry hits it with his sword. So, Pastry gives a bitch slap to Strudel with his sword as he falls. Moreover, Pastry suggests Strudel to always keep his eyes on his enemy during war. Turns out Pastry used his magic on Strudel's sword and made it weaker before the fight even started. Hence, Casserole feels amazed by his son's fighting sense and he pats him in happiness. For some unknown reason, Pastry starts to get worried because he hasn't started to build his sweet country. 1 month later, Pastry joins the official engagement banquet of Lord Squale and Lady Petra. There, the Duke approaches Casserole and Pastry and thanks them for containing the incident that took place last month. There, they notice that Lord Squale seems very happy to marry the girl he fell in love with at first sight. I mean, who wouldn't be happy if such a blessing is given to them? Moreover, Pastry tells Duke that he wants to ask him something that has been bothering him since last month's incident. He reveals even though the enemies were very deliberate and careful with the plan, how did they end up kidnapping the wrong person? So Pastry believes that there was a third party involved in the incident, who somehow was in favor of this wedding, because they gave those kidnappers the wrong information. He reveals that it must be someone who will benefit the most from this. It must be someone hated by the Armire house, and after this incident, they will make sure the House Armire would never regain power again. Pastry is indirectly pointing fingers at the Duke. Moreover, the Duke asks him to stop. So Pastry covers it up by saying that as a kid, he loves to imagine outrageous outcomes in these kinds of incidents. This kid will get the whole Mill family executed one day. Even the Duke realizes that he underestimated this kid. Furthermore, Pastry asks for a favor from the Duke. He asks him to help him aid the land of Mill since it's getting hard for them to crop after the attack. And if the Duke refused, then Pastry's tongue might slip in front of the Margraves. Hence, Duke has no option but to promise Pastry that he will take care of it. Moreover, Duke does admit that he might be the one to leak the information, but he never had any intention of putting Licorice and Pastry in danger. That's where Donachel arrives as he meets Casserole and thanks Pastry for protecting his daughter. And out of the blue, he proposes to his daughter, Licorice's marriage proposal to Pastry. At this moment, Pastry starts to hesitate while Casserole simply holds his head, since Donachel caught them off guard. So to make it up, Pastry tells him that Lady Licorice might find someone better since Pastry is still a kid. Though Donachel takes it as a negative perspective and believes that Pastry thinks she's not enough for him. And when Pastry starts to clarify what he meant, Donachel corners him to marry his daughter. Duke seems to be loving this scenario since the blackmailer is getting blackmailed. Even Casserole is forced to agree with him. Hence, Donachel immediately orders to gather his family to announce the proposal. Even Duke calls out his family. And so, the news starts to spread that Lady Licorice is marrying the next Lord of Morteln, which is her savior too. Moreover, his future bride, Lady Licorice, comes to Pastry and thanks him for saving her the other day. And at this point, even Pastry starts to gain feelings for her as he finds her beautiful. Hence, everyone starts to cheer on this happy occasion. Well, everyone except Casserole, who feels like he got trapped. Even Squale and Petra seem excited to have Pastry in their family. Can't wait to see Agnes's reaction to this. Later that day, Pastry and Licorice are standing on the terrace. So Lady Licorice asks Pastry if she is good enough for him. So Pastry tells her that he is actually happy and looks forward to their marriage. Moreover, Licorice then reveals that she tried to make something like baked sweets for Pastry, so she wants him to try them. Hence, she gives him the cookies that they made. Pastry tells her that she made a quite delicious cookie, even though he finds it salty. And so, the 9-year-old hero swears that he will protect this girl no matter what. Now it's time for the consequences. Casserole finally gets home to his wife. He tells Agnes to stay calm and hear what he has to say. It confuses Agnes to see her husband being so pale that she thinks that her husband is here to apologize for making another extravagant purchase. Therefore, she tells him to relax because she can't get mad at something like that. In this situation, Casserole is scared as hell. He literally tells Agnes that he has a new girl in his life. What? Is he trying to get rid of her wife now, instead of facing the consequences? Well, Agnes is confused right now. She wasn't expecting something that unusual to come from Casserole's mouth. The story continues while Agnes' heat meter starts to rise. Casserole tells her that everything happened so suddenly and without his will, he simply became overwhelmed. However, Casserole then carries on to explain that the girl is beautiful and belongs to a high-ranking family. Moreover, that girl even has a twin. Just what is this guy trying to do? It pisses Agnes off and she starts to fight him. She would never have allowed Casserole for this. But that's where Casserole tells her that MC also agreed to this marriage. And in this fuss, Casserole finally tells her that the girl is an acceptable match for MC. So she immediately stops and sits back down. She seems quite delighted with the news that she has another daughter now. Casserole just pulled a dark psychology tactic. Usually Agnes would get pissed off, but now she's relieved and happy that her husband isn't cheating. The news gets spread to Count Ritz about MC's engagement. It shocks her to see House Morteln uniting with the Huberics. Coton, Count Ritz's secretary, thinks that the House Huberics are plotting something to increase their influence after joining hands with Kadlacik, but he doesn't understand why they chose to bind their house to a minor one, like Morteln. They start to make conspiracies by thinking that House Huberic believes the fief of Morteln has the potential to grow into a bountiful one. Bruh, Licorice liked MC and they got married. It's that simple. House Morteln has been making great progress throughout the years. They began with a ruined land and now they are known for their crops. And since MC is the genius one there, he literally negotiated with Count Ritz. So having that boy in the family is actually beneficial for any family. On the other hand, MC's aid finally arrives, which he requested from Duke Kadlacik and Lord Squale. So as Lumi opens the box, she gets confused to see a plant. MC then explains that it's actually a black locust sapling. These trees are easy to grow in poor soil and they provide nectar that is used to make honey and other sweet stuff. Heh, didn't bees make honey? MC can't wait to make sweets from the nectar that they'll get from these trees. However, these plants would need proper land and water to harvest, and the fief of Morteln gets little rainfall, therefore MC decides to use a shift of gears. Basically, instead of shifting these plants to lands with plentiful rainfall, they'll grow them with a method common to arid regions. He'll simply make a reservoir. He's going to create an artificial lake in simple terms. Making a large reservoir would be enough to last the whole year, whereas Casserole and Beetwin calculate the budget, and finally they end up making 4 3/8 gold profits. Casserole is now relieved because his fief is now balanced and going through the establishment. For 20 years, the fief remained unstable financially, but their efforts were finally rewarded. Both of them give credit to MC and call him a savior who was sent by God. Casserole is glad to have people like Beetwin, Cointreau, and Glackage by his side who remained loyal during difficult times. Like always, Beetwin reveals that he has good news and bad news. The good news is that their new village, Les Melotes, has gathered over 40 settler applicants. Those people are mostly refugees, and the 5 people that were hired are currently getting trained by Glackage. Well, the bad news is that the kids embarked on a new venture. MC is currently heading to Les Melotes with his little friends. It worries Casserole because he doesn't know what the kid is trying to do. Therefore, he decides to head to Les Melotes with Beetwin. Meanwhile, MC literally holds a cliff by punching it. Looks like he has secretly replicated Strudel's magic. MC is so happy after seeing that the replication actually worked. And just like that, the kid made a large hole in the ground in no time. He plans to plant the trees at the sides of the reservoir, so it would be easy to water them. He's so happy because everything is going according to his plan to make the land of sweets. But that's where we see an angry Casserole standing right in front of MC. Sweat starts to drop from MC's body while Casserole starts to rage. Even Lumi and Mark get hit in the head along with MC. We then again see Count Ritz. She can't stop thinking about what the House Huberic is up to. The fact that they have created strong connections with the House Morteln worries her. Well, she explains that Huberic played an outstanding move. Count Ritz would have done the same if she had a daughter. But what gets under her skin the most is the fact that both Kadlacik and Huberic, both Easterners, ganged up to go over her head and started meddling in the affairs of the South. She believes that those houses should have at least talked to her before poking their noses in her business. She literally has no role or authority on whatever they did. Seeing her so worried, Coton suggests Count Ritz to marry MC if she's that concerned. Thankfully, she's not into underage kids, as she reveals that 10-year gap is a lot. Therefore, marrying him is not an option, but she wants to think of some way to take MC under her wing. Hopefully, she doesn't plan to marry Casserole now, so she smirks at Coton while saying that she has an idea. We then see Cointreau telling others that Lord MC has created the lake that seems to amaze everyone. He made that lake within 3 months, and the fief of Mortelme is now surrounded by reservoirs. It benefits the whole fief because now people don't have to worry about getting water without wells. Moreover, the black locust trees are making great progress. Surprisingly, Josie walks in and tells MC that she has a letter for him. It seemed fairly urgent, so Josie brought that letter to MC herself. It appears that Count Ritz has invited MC to a tea tasting ceremony. She wants to know MC's opinion on her new teas. Well, with great money comes less responsibility. Casserole literally hired a poor boy, Niccolo Nono, as a retainer to handle all the written work. So Beatwin blames MC for giving them all those pages. But that's where MC clarifies himself and tells them that it's all Casserole's fault since it lies under his authority. Furthermore, Beatwin reveals that Casserole flew off to the royal capital to handle some business. Therefore, MC tells him about the invitation from Count Ritz, and that invitation mentions that specifically only MC is invited for the ceremony. Even though MC knows that she must be plotting something, he wants to talk to his father about it before rejecting the invitation. That's when we see Casserole standing behind them. He reveals that he already heard about the invitation from the royal capital. MC is concerned that she's planning to take revenge for how he handled the bandit compensation negotiation. But before MC could talk further, Casserole interrupts him and says he brought an important guest with him today. Unsurprisingly, Licorice walks in and both the couple get happy to see each other. It appears that Licorice will be staying with MC for the time being. Well, it shocks him obviously. They're just engaged for the time being. Looney comes running to Mark and the rest of the kids while shouting that she has big news to tell. She tells the gang that MC's fiancé is here, though Mark isn't shocked by that because his father already told him that Licorice will be staying here for a while. Lumi reveals that rumors are being spread around that MC's fiancé is a sexy older woman with curves who has MC wrapped around her little fingers. Meanwhile, we see MC showing his secret kitchen to Licorice, though that room is quite empty and only has a few utensils along with apples. It then cuts to the Hubara Castle where a guy is telling Donichel that it's understandable to send Lady Petra to study in the royal capital to strengthen the trust of the Duke's family. But why did he decide to send Lady Licorice to the fief of Mortelme? It appears that Donichel is sick of Count Ritz scheming behind his back. That woman has bad intentions for his son-in-law. Therefore, he sent his daughter to the fief of Mortelme to strengthen MC's and Licorice's bond. Because they believe a woman with Count Ritz's intelligence must have surely grasped the fief of Mortelme's potential. Getting invited suddenly to a tea party seems suspicious to Donichel. That's why he sent his daughter straight away, so she would accompany MC to the ceremony. It would make it difficult for Count Ritz to dote on MC while his fiancé would be around. That's not it. Donichel fears that his neighbor, Luderoot, might attack them or something after the word gets out about the engagement, and that's why he sent his daughter somewhere safe. Anyways, MC reveals that he's making samples for a gift he'd like to bring to the tea tasting party. It's cute how Licorice is observing MC while he is cooking. MC then tells her that bonkas are actually considered rare in this region. One can only get their hands on bonkas in the royal capital. So MC had to stop spending money for months so his dad could let him have bonkas. Licorice loves the scent of whatever MC is cooking, however. MC wants to keep this dish a surprise until it's properly finished. It appears that MC is actually making hard candies, and to impress Lady Licorice, he starts to shape those candies into various animals. However, she gets confused when MC crafts a plane with the candy because in this world, the concept of planes doesn't exist. At this point, MC's details about candies are going above Licorice's head, but she's loving how MC is so passionate about something. She starts to stare at MC and claims that seeing MC's gentle and innocent expressions is quite rare. Seeing MC putting so much effort into those candies makes her feel like not eating those candies and keeping them as decorations. But MC tells her that it'll be a waste if she doesn't eat them. Besides, candies are made to be eaten. While these couples are having their discussion, we see Agnes and Josephine peeping from the door. Even Mark and Lumi are spotted with them. It pisses the mother and daughter off that MC isn't making any moves on her. He's all focused on the suite. They want the MC to at least hold her hand or flirt with the princess while they're at it. It's getting on their nerves to see such boring interactions between those two. I mean, they are literally 15 years old. What do they expect from them? We then see MC coating the bonkas with the candy syrup. The presentation itself impresses Licorice, so MC hands her the apple lollipop and tells her to try it. It refreshes her tongue after eating the candy bonka, while Licorice is complimenting the dessert. MC pulls out the door and exposes the spies. Well, Agnes and Josephine manage to take a run, but Mark and Lumi get caught. MC reveals that he was going to let these two sample those candy bonkas, but he changed his mind after finding out these two were also involved in the eavesdropping. Therefore, he'll give it to his father and Beatwin instead. On the other hand, Beatwin discusses with Casserole about Niccolo being MC's bodyguard at the ceremony. So Casserole explains that Count Ritz's ceremony is actually a matchmaking event where young people around the world are gathering. Therefore, he and Beatwin have no business there, though he believes that MC will be fine. But it's Licorice who makes him worry, even though Kara will be with her, but she doesn't seem very comfortable with social interactions. Hopefully, Count Ritz doesn't humiliate her there. The day of the ceremony finally arrives. MC makes his entry with Licorice while Niccolo and Kara are walking behind them. Even Licorice is impressed with the pirate castle. MC notices Vixen's picture on the wall that he made for her. That's where Coton greets them and straight up tells MC that he is here to keep an eye on him. He then announces MC and his fiancée's arrival to everyone. Well, MC finds that opportunity perfect to promote the Mortelm's name. Therefore, he introduces his candies to everyone. The audience is delighted after eating the hard candy. And as the entrepreneur MC is, he tells everyone that he's willing to distribute these candies to whoever desires them for free. Although, in return, he wants the merchants to not be subject to sugar taxes. Even Count Ritz is impressed by MC's proposal as she makes her entry. She then asks MC to talk in private about his proposal while telling Coton to take Licorice to the guest room. Even though Licorice holds MC's hand, he tells her to not worry about him. He'll be fine and tells Niccolo and Kara to take care of Licorice while he sorts the matter. Count Ritz takes MC to her office where MC comes to the point and asks her the purpose of inviting him here. Is it to get him killed? So Count Ritz tells him that she is a frail woman who would never dare to do such a thing. She then asks MC what he wants, so the kid brings the hard candies to her and tells her to try it. Like everyone, Count Ritz also gets delighted with the flavor. She has eaten many tea sweets in her life, but none of them were this good. MC then tells her that he made these hard candies by himself by using water, sugar, and honey. His goal is to produce all the ingredients inside Fief Mortelm to avoid import someday. It surprises her to hear that the kid wants to produce honey and sugar in the fief. Moreover, MC expects to be able to create a mass production of these candies within 3 years. Even though the Fief of Mortelm has a barren plot of land, considering it's MC, Count Ritz knows that he will somehow manage to do it. Since Count Ritz's lad ship has access to a harbor, MC is hoping to have her support in this endeavor. She finds MC quite mysterious because she thinks that MC's end goal could be something greater, but she fails to understand what kind of future MC is actually seeking. However, she accepts his proposal only as regards these candies. Her intentions don't seem pure. Meanwhile, Coton makes Licorice jealous by saying that everyone is admiring MC here. He's the center of the talk now. He's sure that MC will foster quite a few new relationships from this occasion. Licorice doesn't like the thought that MC will be interacting with other women in the ceremony. She's literally hearing other girls talking about MC on how he's so young yet very refined. So Niccolo and Kara circle Licorice and tell her to ignore these people. Those people even start to talk about Licorice, which makes her quite uncomfortable. So she starts to walk away due to her introvertness. She only came here to be accompanied by MC, who ditched her the moment he interacted with Count Ritz. While MC and Vixen are walking back to the hall, Vixen teases MC by grabbing him from behind. She doesn't intend to release him until MC admits he's in love with Licorice. But in the meantime, Licorice walks in front of them. In her point of view, she sees her fiancé being hugged by a young lady while she is away. Not sure if Count Ritz planned all this. For some unknown reason, Count Ritz makes a creepy smile while looking at Licorice. MC immediately escapes Count Ritz's grip while Licorice runs away. Even Kara believes what she just saw, but MC tells her that he'll explain later and runs away to Licorice. As he reaches Licorice, who is standing outside the castle, she immediately starts to apologize to MC. So MC clarifies himself by saying that Count Ritz sees him as a kid, therefore she often teases him. But apparently that's not what bothers Licorice the most. She explains that everyone was talking about him in the hallway, even the ladies. Therefore, she started to imagine the most awful things, like maybe if any other woman expresses her fondness for MC, then he would cheat on her, because MC won't be needing her anymore. Licorice then starts to cry as she tells MC that she is not like her sister who can talk with anyone so easily. Everyone liked Petra due to her boldness, whereas Licorice was always in the shadows. Sometimes Licorice wishes to be like her sister. MC immediately interrupts her and holds her hand. He tells her that she doesn't need to be like Petra. Our little hero likes her the way she is, and he is sure that he will only come to like her even more. Therefore, she doesn't have to fear about MC ever leaving her. He just wants her to trust him and believe what he is saying. MC then tells Licorice to wait for a minute while he returns. The kid literally teleports somewhere, while leaving Licorice alone outside the castle. MC then returns and hands her a special bunkai candy that has a heart shape in it. Thank goodness their drama ended. I thought this whole episode would be about MC trying to clarify himself. It appears that MC literally teleported to his kitchen and made this fresh bunkai candy for his loved one. It melts her heart as she takes her first bite, and the aroma of the fruit along with the sweetness arouses in her mouth. It reminds her of the time she shared with MC alone in the kitchen while he was preparing this candy. Apparently, they weren't alone. 4 more people were poking their noses. She feels lucky to share that moment with just him. Tears start to drop from Licorice's eyes, which worries MC. So she tells him that it is actually the tears of joy. She is not crying from sadness. While she's eating the candy bunkai, MC tells her that this dish has so many names throughout the region, like the toffee apple, heaven's apple, apple of paradise, and lastly, apple of love. MC then convinces Licorice that his feelings for her are unwavering. He literally poured all this love into this treat. Once again, he asks her to simply trust him, as he always wants to make her happy and see her smiling. Whereas Licorice silently eats the treat and thanks MC for making such a delicious dessert for her as she smiles. Hence, the couple holds hands and starts to come closer to each other for a kiss, while MC wonders about making the land of sweet together with Licorice. Well, the kiss never happens because Kara comes in time and stops the kids. Turns out, Nicolo and Kara have been watching them since MC came back with the apple of love. Nicolo literally starts to tease MC by calling him a lover boy, laddie killer, and the thief of Mortelm's own gigolo. It pisses him off, so MC tells him that he will double his workload once they get back home. It scares the living soul out of Nicolo, and he thinks that his master may be joking because no one is that cruel. Well, unluckily, MC hears that and triples the workload for him. Anyways, they finally return to the land of Mortelm, where Agnes welcomes MC by hugging him tightly. Agnes then starts to smirk when she looks at Licorice. Turns out she saw MC making that special bantha candy for her. She literally forces MC to go inside with her and tell her about his day. Nicolo finds Agnes more intimidating than the Count. Later, we see MC laying his head on the table as he is exhausted, so Beetwin pours him some tea. There, Beetwin notices some pages, so MC tells him that these are the leftover wrapping paper for the hard candy. Agnes and MC wrap those candies together. Shockingly, we see MC's photo sketched on that paper. That's not it. It's the photo where Count Reitz is grabbing MC from behind. Looks like MC drew that sketch on every wrapping paper as revenge for messing with him and Licorice. On the other hand, we see Count Reitz raging while throwing stuff. MC's prank pissed her off. Turns out MC sent those candies to all the nobles wrapped in that paper. So now a rumor is being spread nationwide that Count Reitz is into young boys. Due to that, Count Reitz is receiving dozens of offers every day from far too young prospects. Even 8-year-olds are offering marriage proposals to Count Reitz. On the other hand, the Hubarek house is noticing stirring from Margrave Luderout. Looks like he will be making his move before the summer. He has realized that the union between their house and Duke Cadlasek will strengthen the army. That is why they'll be invading before that. Margrave seems eager to conclude his long rivalry at last. And according to the reports, Margrave has around 30,000 soldiers. So Donachel decides to send a letter requesting reinforcement to Duke Cadlasek at once. Anyways, we then see MC counting the money that he earned from the hard candy while singing a song. Looks like MC has earned around 384 coins from his business. The boy even puts 4 gold coins into his savings while he invests the rest to expand his business. MC's next goal is to get his hand on goat's milk and cheese, so Beatwin reveals that they used to have goats here. But since they were eating all the greenery in the barren land, Casserole had no choice but to let them go. But now that the fief is rich and green, MC has decided to open a farm that'll have chickens and goats. He further explains how chicken lays eggs, which are one of the most essential ingredients to make any sweet. Kid is literally scolding a grown-ass Beatwin because he intended to eat those chickens. MC then shows another syrup to Beatwin and tells him to taste it. This syrup is extracted from sorghum, a particular kind of sorghum grass. Well, Beatwin finds the syrup way too sweet, but that's exactly what MC wants to hear, because he plans to make sugar from it and turn the Morteln into a producer of confectionaries. MC believes that half of his problems will be solved if he successfully manages to make sugar inside the fief. Beatwin doesn't mind MC doing his things unless he uses magic for these things, because Casserole might smite him again. Why is Casserole limiting his son? Bro should let MC use magic on whatever benefits them. Later, MC and the kids' club craft a wooden juice maker machine, but that doesn't last long because Lumi and Mark end up breaking it when they try to pull the lever or whatever that was. So now, MC thinks about crafting everything again, but this time, instead of wood, he'll use iron. But Licorice doesn't think that's a good idea. After being shy, she finally tells MC that in Hubarek, they use a machine called a juicer to make wine. Instead of pulling the lever, it involves 2 people turning it. It actually relieves MC to know that such a tool already exists. Therefore, they now just have to figure out a way to get one instead of wasting time in crafting. At first, Mark and Lumi get pissed off for working that hard for nothing, but MC convinces them by saying he will make them his taste tester. Hence, MC immediately runs off to Beatwin to ask him for a juicer, but as he enters the office, he sees that Casserole is back. Both of them seemed worried, so MC asks them what happened. It appears that a war has begun between Hubarek's lands in the east and their neighbor Luderout. The word war scares the hell out of MC. Even though MC is madly worried about the war, that doesn't stop him from cooking. On the other hand, a weird close-up is shown of Casserole and Beatwin where they are shirtless and are sweating. It somehow seems like they both are banging someone together, and while banging, Casserole asks Beatwin about MC. So he reveals that currently MC is working on some kind of sample sweet made by whisking eggs. He's been at it the whole day. Finally, the misunderstanding ends as the camera zooms out and we see Casserole and his squad lifting weights and working out. Casserole believes that cooking itself is a form of exercise and bets that MC has muscles. But that's where MC walks in and flexes his slim and delicate arm. He explains that by whisking eggs, one gains slow twitch muscle fibers instead of getting buffed up. Moreover, he reveals that most calories from sweets come from carbohydrates and fat. Did they just forget that Hubareks are going through a war right now? Finally, we see Luderout war camp, where his men tell him that there's no word yet of reinforcement from the Duke's estate. Turns out, Luderout spread the false rumor of having an army of 30,000 men so Hubarek would ask for reinforcement. So having no reinforcement concluded that either the Duke turned them down or the Hubarek withdrew their request for aid. For now, they are assuming that the Hubarek must have withdrawn the reinforcement request after finding out the Luteraut only has 10,000 men. He would want to handle them himself to save his face. And that's where a soldier walks in and tells them that one of Hubarek's daughter's fiancés is currently stationed in the Margrave. It's the Duke's grandson, Squell. Meanwhile, we see Licorice confronting MC. She feels like something is wrong, and MC seems a bit lost in thought. It appears that Licorice is well aware of the war between her homeland and its neighbor. In this situation, MC and Licorice think that war is a foolish thing. Instead of going to war, one should be making delicious sweets and getting lost in it the same way MC does. Oh Lord, not Licorice now. If everyone had the same passion as MC, Licorice believes that the world would be a happy and joyous place. Both of them then start to talk about how sweet is the root of happiness. The depressed diabetic guy just got offended. MC then tells Licorice that the merchant will be delivering goats today. So from its milk, MC is going to make many desserts including cheesecakes. But things take a different turn. The merchant arrives, but without goats. He explains that someone swiped the goats before he could bring them here. It appears that another noble bought them all up, however. That person forcefully bought the goats without the merchant's concern. The merchant then further reveals that the noble named Baron Lunsfidge was the guy who bought the goats. Baron is famous for picking on newer noble families, and currently, the House Morteln isn't powerful enough to file a complaint against another noble. Not until the engagement to House Hubarek gets formalized. Besides, the Hubarek are busy fighting their war. What's more is that this war will even affect trade from House Morteln, now that they have allied with them. We then see MC getting fired up because that Baron guy shattered his dreams. He's literally going to fight the Baron, but Casserole stops him and tells him to stay low until the war is going. Besides, Baron didn't steal them, he just bought the goats. Even if MC goes to get the goats back, Baron will simply use the war as an excuse and will dismiss him. So Casserole tells MC to have patience. Once the conflict gets settled, MC will get his chance to negotiate. It saddens MC, so to cheer him up, Beatwin reveals that he can get his supplies back if the House Morteln joins the war as reinforcement. After the war, they can assert priority selection of provisions. Besides, Baron is a greedy man and he wouldn't aid the Hubareks during the war. And MC's and Licorice's engagement is enough reason to side with the Hubarek during the war. They're literally willing to risk their men just so MC can get goats. Hence, Casserole, Glackage, MC, and Nicolo head out to aid the House of Hubarek along with 12 of their men. Angs comforts Licorice by telling her that MC will be alright. Whereas MC is focused on getting his goats back because he promised to make cheesecake for Licorice, and MC is a man for his words. On the other hand, we see Squall simping over Petra at the Hubarek house. Even Donegal is standing there as he starts to tease Squall by saying that he's lying. But that's when his secretary walks in and tells him that Luteraut's main force is on the march, although they are just around 10,000 men. So Donegal realizes that they can handle those men, and he sends Squall to the frontline defenses. Even Petra tells his father that it's riskier without any reinforcement, so Donegal tells her that he knows what he is doing. On the other side, it appears that Luteraut's forces are showing signs of fatigue while the Hubareks are growing their ranks. It appears that Luteraut's real goal is to lure Squall out and finish him off. He knows that Squall has never been to a battle, so killing that boy can ruin the relationship between Cadlasik and Hubarek, and doing so would be a game over for the Hubareks. Well, Squall and his group march to their station, while we see Luteraut's forces hiding in the bushes. We then see a glimpse of yesterday where Casserole and Morteln enter Hubarek's house. Looking at the charts, Casserole immediately recognizes that something seems off. His hunter's instinct is telling that the enemies have plotted something else. Although the formation certainly seems sensible and solid, something still feels wrong. Even MC joins the conversation and reveals that the formation shouldn't be this solid. Probably because Donegal created the formation of attackers, even though they are the ones defending attacks from the enemies, whereas the enemies are in a defensive formation. At this point, they do realize that the enemy isn't after tearing them down. So after looking at the overall formation, Casserole realizes that the enemy is focused on attacking the front defense line. It scares Donegal and he reveals that he sent Squall to the same side. Donegal thought the front defense line would be an easy area to defend. Therefore, he sent Squall over there as his first development, even though that guy has no combat experience. The only good decision Donegal took throughout the anime was to select suitable guys for his daughter. Anyways, Casserole and MC immediately rush towards Lord Squall to aid him because he will not last a second if the enemies ambush him. Back to Squall, he is literally charging blindly at some enemy and falls into their traps as the reinforcement circles them. At this point, Squall starts to panic because everyone is relying on him. He's literally seeing his soldier dying right in front of him. Although he doesn't give up and tries to retreat, the enemies have trapped him in a circle. On the other hand, Casserole and the group are on their way to Squall. He tells MC to distract the enemy. We then see Squall giving up because he can't even retreat, but that's where he starts to think about Petra and tells his people that they'll somehow carve a path through. At first, his men start to lose hope, but that's where the help arrives as we see Glackage and Casserole annihilating the enemies. At this point, the enemy literally starts to retreat. Damn, just 2 professional warriors are enough to make this army of hundreds retreat. Seeing MC makes Squall sigh with relief that he's finally out of danger. Squall can't express how happy he is to see MC and the gang arriving like an angel in the hour of need. The word spreads to Luderout, who is shocked and pissed off at the arrival of the Morteln's finest soldiers. But what scares him the most is the fact that now there's a high chance that Duke Cadlisic might send reinforcement after all, especially after knowing that even Morteln has joined the war along with the Huberics. Even though his advisor has started to suggest that he withdraw their soldiers, Luderout starts to rage after knowing that the situation has gotten out of his hands now. On the other hand, Squall manages to return to the Huberic house safe and sound. Donegal even apologizes to him since his lack of due diligence put the prince in grave danger. Donegal is even thankful to Casserole and MC for helping him in such a difficult situation. Although Squall seems traumatized by the event he just witnessed, he literally interrupts Casserole when he starts to appreciate Squall for refusing to yield even when the enemies surround him. It appears that Squall is well aware that he would have died today if Casserole and MC hadn't arrived on time. Anyways, Donegal reveals that Luderout's army seems to have retreated back to their territory for now. Therefore, now it's time to celebrate those with accomplishments in the battle. They barely survived in this minor war. Instead of celebrating, Donegal should focus on strengthening his guard. Even Squall isn't satisfied with the celebration because he believes that he doesn't deserve to be appreciated or celebrated. So Donegal tells the depressed boy to get some rest as he seems tired. Squall then tells Petra to leave him alone for some time because he needs to heal from today's phenomenon. Casserole also tells Donegal to leave the kid alone for some time because he just had a canon event. Although Petra is worried as hell, she can't come up with a way to comfort Squall. So the task gets handed to MC for comforting the traumatized prince, since he has done this before by comforting Mark when he made a mistake. Even Petra insists MC to help Squall in this situation because she never saw him that depressed before. Unsurprisingly, our hero comes up with an idea to make dessert for the prince because he believes that behind every smile, there is a sweet. Moreover, he has Casserole, Donegal, and Petra's support, so MC asks them to bring him some bonkas, and the very next moment MC walks up to his kitchen because he wants to bring him the light of a smile. On the other hand, we see Squall standing alone in the corner while everyone is having a toast to victory. Donegal is literally celebrating it like he just got rid of all the enemies. People at the party are talking out loud about the fact that only Squall got the credit for the whole war while they didn't get any recognition. So Casserole walks up to Squall and tells him to ignore these people, they just want to complain. Moreover, it's normal in war where the upper-class people get praised or criticized while the rest get ignored. But Squall takes his words in the wrong way and says that he has been given a position of prominence of his place in the Duke's line. Even Margrave supported him and set up a perfect first campaign for him. However, he ended up failing everyone's expectations. Squall couldn't even face his grandfather after returning. Meanwhile, we see a glimpse of MC winding up his special dish. Whereas, Donegal steps in and tells Squall that even though he struggled a lot in his first campaign, but in the end that's what made him who he is. But that doesn't help Squall forget about the amount of soldiers dying right in front of him just because of his inexperience. MC finally makes his way to the party. The kid then congratulates Donegal on his victory. So Donegal starts to thank MC for providing aid from a distant land. Anyways, MC then tells Donegal that he briefly made something from Donegal's kitchen to celebrate the occasion. As Nicolo removes the cap, everyone's attention gets pulled to the dish. Even Squall can't help but to stare at it. Its aroma itself pleases the audience in the hall. Moreover, MC hands the first piece to Squall and reveals that today, MC has made a masterpiece known as tarte tatin. It's basically a cake in which the fruit is caramelized in butter and sugar. MC then reveals that he made this dish especially for Squall. As expected, Squall takes the first bite and it cherishes his mood. The prince literally forgets about the people who were massacred on the battlefield because of his leadership lack. MC starts to lecture Squall about the history of how tarte tatin came from a failure at making tarts. Therefore, MC believes that failure often brings up miracles. Just as the Tatin twins came up with this dessert, they could have thrown their failure away, but the girls chose to keep their failure and promote it. Their name wouldn't have made it to history if they had chosen to throw away the tarte tatin after considering it as a failure. In simple words, MC is telling him to learn from his mistakes and move on instead of acting depressed and gaining everyone's sympathy. Even MC thinks of the Tatin sisters whenever he messes up making a sweet. Their confidence motivates MC. Although the Duke is quite the opposite, failure is unacceptable for him. The guy literally tells Squall to not show any weakness since Squall is the next heir to the Cadlasic name. Looking at Duke's perspective, the guy just wants to raise an actual warrior. Petra then steps in and tells Squall that he didn't fail. In fact, he stayed up to his word and returned after promising Petra that he would. These people are creating a weak leader without realizing. Furthermore, Petra is proud of Squall for his modesty because instead of celebrating, he is thinking about the soldiers who didn't make their way back. Finally, the mission to bring a smile to Squall's face succeeds. So Squall grabs a pair of tarte tatin and goes to the garden to eat his dessert with his girl. Since MC did so much for them, Donegal offered the kid to ask for anything. Later, we see MC and his gang arriving at the Fief of Mortelm along with multiple mysterious boxes that Donegal gave him as gratitude. He then hands a letter to Licorice that her father wrote for her. Later, MC tells Beetwin that Casserole decided to stay in the Margrave to take his revenge on Baron. So now, Casserole plans to buy up all the materials and livestock that Baron was about to get. It appears that the Mortelm house contributed the most to the campaign, therefore demanding anything would help with other negotiations. In that same instant, Casserole arrives in the office and immediately teleports MC with him to the Margrave. It appears that they have managed to get their hands on a large amount of goats and horses. Therefore, Casserole needs MC to assist him by teleporting all of these animals back to the fief. Beetwin is shocked to see such a huge amount of animals appearing in the fief. What revenge does to a financially responsible leader. On the other hand, MC reveals that he asked for a juicer from Donegal, so the kids club straight up starts to work on that juicer. Later, when MC returns home, Angs tells him that he needs to go to the royal capital with Casserole. Apparently, the letter that Licorice received from her father is an invitation for Licorice to gather at the royal capital at the end of the summer. Therefore, Licorice wants MC to head toward the royal capital and buy her a special dress for the event. And that's exactly what happens. Both the father and son visit the royal capital, and they even pay a visit to the Duke after deciding to dress for Licorice. We then see a short glimpse of everyone spending quality time with the things or people they love. Poor Count Reitz, she's so alone that looking at her portrait with MC is what cherishes her the most. Later, MC bakes a special dessert for his girl. It's cheesecake made from goat's milk. It cheers the princess because she knows that this dessert will taste delicious since MC is the one making it. Moreover, she writes a letter to her father saying that everyone loves her here and she is having great fun every day. Even though Donegal misses his daughter, he's relieved to see his daughter being happy. The season ends with MC whispering a secret dish to Licorice and telling her to get her hopes up. Looking at the ingredients, it is probably pumpkin pie or cake.